Calculating a value by code. The first type of codes we will study is the calculation of values. What are they for? For example, here is a table. Here are the rifles, price and quantity. We need to calculate the sum on the row. And how we do it? We go to field settings. We have a setting code. And we type in our value calculating code. So, we need to take the value of the fields. Let's duplicate the tab, the value of the fields of the price and multiply by the amount. How do we do that? We put a sharp, and we get a drop-down list here. We can use the up and down keys to visually select a field or start typing the name of the field, or its title, and when you press enter, it will be inserted into the code. Next, we put a multiply sign here and get the second field. We will do the following. If you want to take the name of the field directly visually, here we have a display name, we click on it, it is copied to the clipboard, and we put a sharp and paste the value. Sharp mean that we are accessing other fields in the same table. Let me save it. What have we got here? The table was recalculated. It was recalculated immediately, because it is a calculation table in the tree. If you have a simple one, it won't happen that way. You will need to recalculate the rows. We will focus on this in future videos in the units of recalculation section. Don't think about that just yet. Here is the field where we wrote the code. Here we have an indication that there is a code. If there is a change in the number of items in the order, for example, it will be recalculated here. The recalculation will be done because we have a code enabled here. If we click here, we'll see that this is where the code is active. And if we click on the code, we see this code. This is an alternative access to the code, additional to editing through the field. I'm going to do it through the field settings, because that's more comfortable for me personally. Here we have a rows part and we have 3 rows in it, but we entered one code and we refer to the price and to the count. In the rows part it works in such a way that the reference by the sharp is like this. The sharp price and sharp count for each row takes the value from the corresponding price and count from the same row. It's all pretty simple. Let's make it more complicated. For example, we have a discount here. So, for example, here we put it at 3%, here it will be 2%, and here it will not be. And we want to calculate the sum minus the discount. How do we do that? We open the field, look for the code, activate the code, and we now know that we have a field, sum. It has the total sum, and we want to subtract the discount sum from it, sale sum. The icon we have here $. Dollar means that we want to refer to another line in this code. We're going to move the carriage and we're going to start typing sale sum. Here it tells us which parameter to fill in. Because you see, sale sum is italicized now. This means that he doesn't see any lines of code for this call. Okay. Press enter and the name of the code line always ends with a colon. Equal and colon is a special line name, and the code starts executing from it. That is, when the code starts in a particular field, it will take the sum, then see that it has a subtraction here. Next it will see that it needs to take the value and the sale sum. It will go to the sale sum, calculate the sale sum, return that value here. If there's a reference to the next line here, he'll go to the next line and so on, along the chain. How do we calculate the sale sum? We have the sum. We divide it by 100, because we have 3, 2, and other percentages there. And multiply it by the value of the sale field. Now for the next point. In Totum, the mathematical operations will be performed as on a calculator when written like this. That is, first there will be division, then there will be multiplication. Even if we put a minus here, mathematically the multiplication should happen first, and then the total number should be subtracted from the sum. But that's not the case in Totum. With this notation, both the sum will be subtracted 100 first, and then the multiplication will be done. In other words, it's like a calculator. In fact, most codes are calculated this way. Most of the actions are consecutive: plus, minus, multiply, divide, and so on. If you absolutely have to have the actions in mathematical order, then you have to type math, put a quote like this and another quote like this at the end, and then whatever is inside math will be calculated in mathematical order. It will do multiplication first, and then it will do subtraction. We don't need that right now. We're going to be on math, in more detail, a little later. I'll come back here division and save it. By the way, we don't have a money format here. Let me turn it on. Recall that it only affects the display inside. There's the number 3.68. You can put comments in the codes. I'll open the code like this. By putting 2 slashes at the beginning of the line, you can say something in the comment. And in addition to comments, the code can be structured with indents, tabs, for example, or spaces. I recommend tabs only. And the proper structuring would be a staircase of nested elements. That is, this sale sum calls the sale sum. So we indent this part of the code and place it under the calling block, and so on. We will stop here a few more times, but the code here is short, so we can leave it that way. Save. When you save this option of opening the code, the page is not reloaded. The data is updated and recalculated. If it's a calculation table, for example, the last thing I wanted to mention is whitespace. A good code design practice would be to leave spaces before and after the operator of the mathematical action or the comparison operator. That is, the code will work in this form, but in this form it is much less readable. So the rule of style is to leave whitespace. That's it, practice and on to the next video.